My name is Liam Parker, I'm 28, and most days I feel like background noise in my own life. I work on the 17th floor of Hale & Associates, one of those glass towers in Midtown where everybody pretends they're too busy to breathe. My job title is Financial Analyst at 2, which sounds important until you realize I'm the guy who double-checks spreadsheets so the real players can take the credit. I show up at 8:30, headphones on, eat the same turkey sandwich at my desk and leave at 6:05 unless someone dumps a last-minute deck on me. I rent a studio in Murray Hill that smells faintly of old pizza and laundry detergent. No girlfriend, no dog, no plants I manage to kill. Just me, my laptop, and a quiet that's comfortable until it isn't. It was a Thursday in late February when everything tilted. The city had been drowning in cold rain for 3 straight days. I'd run out of milk and anything that resembled dinner, so after work I ducked into the Whole Foods on 7th Avenue, the one with the harsh white lights that make everybody look half dead. I was soaked the second I stepped off the sidewalk, hoodie plastered to my head, shoes squelching. I grabbed a basket, threw in a carton of oat milk and a pre-made turkey and Swiss because cooking felt impossible. I was heading toward the wine aisle, cheap Malbec, nothing fancy, when a hand clamped around my wrist so hard I almost dropped the basket. I looked up, ready to mutter sorry, and froze. Vivian Hale, the Vivian Hale, CEO of the entire company, the woman whose signature is on my paychecks, the woman whose face is on the cover of Forbes with the headline, "The Ice Queen of Wall Street" in bold letters. I'd seen her exactly 4 times in real life. Twice in the elevator, once in the lobby, once when she walked past the bullpen without glancing down. She always wore black or charcoal, hair in a perfect low knot, expression that could freeze coffee. Tonight she looked nothing like that. Her dark hair was wet and loose, strands stuck to her cheeks. No makeup. Pale, eyes wide and glassy. She was wearing a long camel coat, collar turned up, but it was unbuttoned and soaked through. Her hand on my wrist was trembling. She leaned in so close I could smell the rain on her skin and whispered, voice low and shaking, "Be my boyfriend, right now, please." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Before I could process, she tightened her grip and turned us both toward the end of the aisle. A man was walking straight at us, tall, silver at the temples, navy suit under a Burberry trench, arm around a blonde who couldn't have been older than 25. I recognized him instantly, Senator Charles Duncan, Vivian's ex-husband. The divorce had been front-page news 18 months ago, ugly, public, complete, with leaked emails and a $20 million settlement. His eyes locked on Vivian, and the smile that crawled across his face was pure victory. Vivian's spine straightened like someone had pulled a string. The tremor in her hand vanished. She slid her arm through mine, fingers digging into my forearm hard enough to bruise, and laughed. Soft, sweet, the kind of laugh I'd never imagined could come out of her. "There you are," she said, loud enough for them to hear. "I thought I lost you in the craft beer section." Charles slowed, eyebrows raised in mock surprise. "Vivian, didn't expect to see you shopping." The blonde clung tighter to his arm and gave Vivian the slow once-over people give when they know they've already won. Vivian tilted her head, smile sharpening. "Some of us still cook, Charles." I felt her nails through my sleeve. My pulse was hammering so hard I was sure she could feel it. I had no idea what I was doing, but something in the way her shoulders shook, just barely, made me move before my brain caught up. I shifted the basket to my other hand and slid my arm around her waist, fingers resting lightly against the wet wool of her coat. She stiffened for half a second, then leaned into me like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Babe," I said, and my voice only cracked a little. "Did you decide on the Pinot or the Cabernet?" Her eyes flicked to mine, startled, almost scared, then something softened. She turned back to Charles. "Pinot," she said. "Liam has better taste than I do." Charles's gaze slid to me, really seeing me for the first time. I watched him try to place me, fail, and hate that he failed. "Liam," he repeated like the name tasted bad. "New friend?" "Boyfriend," Vivian corrected, and the word hit me in the chest like a fist. The blonde giggled. Charles's smile thinned. "Well," he said, "good for you, Viv. Moving on." Vivian's fingers tightened on my arm. "Some of us don't need to trade in for a newer model every election cycle." Charles's jaw flexed. The blonde tugged at his sleeve, suddenly bored. "We should go," she said. Charles didn't move. "Enjoy the wine," he said, eyes locked on Vivian. "Both of you." They walked away. I waited until they rounded the corner before I let out the breath I'd been holding. Vivian didn't let go of my arm. She stood there, staring at the spot where they'd disappeared, coat dripping onto the linoleum. The bright supermarket lights made her look fragile in a way I'd never imagined possible. Then she dropped my arm like it burned and stepped back. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice cracked. I shouldn't have." Her driver appeared at the end of the aisle, black umbrella in hand. She turned, shoulders curling in, and walked away without another word. I stood there holding a basket with oat milk and a sandwich, rain dripping from my hair, heart still racing. I didn't know it then, but the second her fingers left my skin, something had already started that neither of us could stop. The next morning, I walked into the office expecting security to escort me out. Instead, my inbox had one new meeting invite, 8 a.m., 42nd floor, Vivian Hale. Subject, follow-up. No one on 17 looked up when the elevator opened straight to the executive level. The hallway up here smelled like money and lemon polish. Her assistant didn't speak, just pointed to the glass door at the end. Vivian was already there, standing at the window with her back to me. Same camel coat, from last night now dry and perfect, hair twisted into that severe knot again. The city sprawled behind her like a circuit board. She didn't turn around when the door clicked shut. "I owe you an explanation," she said to the glass. "You don't owe me anything." My voice sounded rougher than I meant it to. She turned then, no makeup again, faint shadows under her eyes, but the armor was back on. She gestured to the conference table where a single folder waited. 4 events, she said. A charity auction next Friday, the Met Gala the week after, a fundraiser in the Hamptons, and the Forbes Summit in May. After that, we're done. You'll never have to see me again. I didn't sit. And if I say no, your badge still works tomorrow. No repercussions. She met my eyes, steady. But I'm asking you to say yes. I laughed under my breath. You threatened to fire me 12 hours ago. I was cornered. A muscle jumped in her cheek. I don't do cornered well. I walked to the table, flipped the folder open. NDA, compensation addendum, scripted answers to expected questions, even approved clothing brands. Everything itemized like a merger. Double salary for 3 months, I read aloud, plus a bonus when it's over. Money makes people believable, she said. I don't want your money. She blinked, first cracking the mask. Then what do you want? I didn't have an answer ready. I only knew that when she'd leaned into me last night, trembling like a bird with a broken wing, something in me had decided I wasn't walking away. I want the truth, I said. No scripts when it's just us. If we're doing this, I'm not a prop. She studied me for a long time. Then she nodded once. Fine. She poured coffee from a stainless carafe, black, no sugar, slid 1 cup across the table to me. Our fingers brushed. She didn't pull away this time. That night she asked me to come to her place to run lines. I expected an assistant, a stylist, maybe security. Instead, she opened the door herself in jeans and an old Columbia sweatshirt, hair loose, barefoot. Her penthouse was exactly what I pictured. Floor-to-ceiling windows, everything white or gray, not a single personal photo. It felt like a museum nobody lived in. She handed me a glass of the same Pinot we'd pretended to choose. Practice, she said, but her voice was softer. We sat on opposite ends of a 12-foot couch and ran through the timeline, how we met, mutual friends, how long we'd been together, 4 months, favorite shared memory, weekend in the Hudson Valley that never happened. She was flawless, every answer clipped and polished. Then she asked, "Your turn. Ask me anything." I thought of the way she'd looked in the supermarket, small and shaking. "Why did you pick me?" She stared into her wine. "Because you look like someone who wouldn't hurt me on purpose." The silence stretched. I set my glass down. "I had someone," I said. 3 years ago. She had depression that got bad fast. I stayed. I thought if I loved her hard enough, she'd get better. One morning, I woke up and she was gone. Left a note that said I deserved someone who wasn't broken. My throat closed. I hadn't said it out loud in years. I've been careful ever since. Vivian's eyes lifted to mine. For the first time, the CEO was gone. I was a professor, she said quietly. Harvard, and constitutional law. I met Charles at a symposium. He was charming, ambitious, promised the world. I gave up tenure to follow him to D.C. When he decided to run for Senate, he needed a younger, quieter wife. The day the papers were signed, he told the press I'd become difficult. Page 6 ran a blind item calling me an ice queen with a drinking problem. She laughed, bitter. I hadn't had a drink in 6 years. She stood, walked to the window, arms wrapped around herself. I built Hale and Associates from scratch after that. Every brick is armor. And then last night he walked in with his 24-year-old fiancée and Her voice cracked. I couldn't breathe. I crossed the room without thinking and stood behind her, not touching, just close enough that she could lean back if she wanted. You breathed, I said. You fought, and you won. She turned, tears shining but not falling. I don't know how to be a person anymore, Liam. I only know how to be a weapon. Then let me remind you, I said. She looked at me for a long, long time. Then she stepped forward and rested her forehead against my chest, just for a second, barely a breath. But it was the most honest thing anyone had given me in years. When she pulled away, the mask was back in place, but softer now. Next Friday, she said. Black tie. I'll send a car. I nodded. As I walked to the elevator, she called after me, voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for not asking if I'm okay. I glanced back. You're not, but you will be. The doors closed on the first real smile I'd ever seen from Vivian Hale. The first event was the charity auction at the Pierre. I stood in the back of a black town car while a stylist adjusted my cufflinks like I was a doll. Vivian stepped in after me, crimson silk gown, hair swept to one side, the Ice Queen in full armor. Cameras flashed the second the door opened. She took my arm without looking at me, fingers light but steady. We smiled. We posed. We lied with our bodies for 3 straight hours. When someone asked how we met, she laughed and said, he fixed my Wi-Fi. And the room laughed with her. I laughed too because it almost felt true. But the moment we were alone in the service corridor behind the ballroom, she sagged against the wall, kicked off her heels and whispered, I hate these people. Then why do it? Because if I stop performing, they win. I picked up her shoes, held them like they were made of glass. Not tonight, they don't. She looked at me for a long second, then took the shoes and walked barefoot to the car. No one saw. After that, the lines started disappearing. Texts that had nothing to do with schedules. Vivian, 2:14 a.m. You awake? Me. Always. Vivian. Tell me something true. Me. I still keep her note in my wallet. The one she left, I don't know why. 3 dots, then Vivian. I still have the wedding invitation, the one that got recalled when he decided I embarrassed him. It's in the safe. We stopped calling them rehearsals. One night she asked me to come over just to cook. I showed up with grocery bags like an idiot. She opened the door in leggings and an old Yale law shirt, hair in a messy bun, barefoot again. We made pasta and burned the garlic. She laughed so hard she had to sit on the counter to breathe. I took a photo without thinking. She didn't tell me to delete it. Later, we sat on her couch, legs tangled under a blanket, watching the city lights through the window. She was quiet for a long time. I used to think love was a weakness, she said, something that made you controllable. And now? Now I think maybe it's the only thing that ever made me brave. I turned to look at her. The room was dark except for the glow from the skyline. Her eyes were soft, unguarded. I reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. She leaned into my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. We kissed that night for the first time when no one was watching. It wasn't fireworks or violins. It was slow and careful and a little scared, like 2 people who'd both been broken, learning how to hold something without crushing it. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. This wasn't in the contract, she whispered. Good, I said. Contracts end. After that, the city started feeling smaller. We met for coffee at a hole in the wall in Brooklyn where nobody knew her name. She wore sunglasses and my hoodie and stole sips from my cup like a teenager. We walked the Brooklyn Bridge at 2 in the morning because she said she'd never done it without security. She held the railing and looked out at the water and said, "I forgot what quiet felt like." I brought her to my tiny studio once. She stood in the doorway, taking in the sagging couch, the leaning bookshelf, the single dying succulent on the windowsill. "This is yours," she said, not a question. "Yeah, sorry, it's perfect," she cut me off. She walked straight to the little kitchen, opened the fridge, and laughed at the half-eaten pizza and single beer. Then she kissed me against the counter until we forgot whose apartment we were in. She started leaving things, a scarf on my chair, a hair tie on my nightstand, a lipstick in my bathroom drawer. I never asked her to take them back. Some nights she fell asleep on my chest while we watched old movies on my laptop balanced on a cardboard box. I'd carry her to bed, and she'd curl into me like she belonged there. In the morning, she'd wake up first, make coffee too strong, kiss my shoulder, and whisper, "I have to go be terrifying now," before putting the armor back on. Once, after the Hamptons fundraiser, we drove back in silence. She stared out the window until we hit the bridge, then reached over and laced her fingers through mine. "I keep waiting for the part where this stops feeling real," she said. I squeezed her hand. "Maybe it doesn't have to." She turned to me, eyes shining with city lights. "I don't know how to keep you," she said, voice cracking. "Then don't try to keep me," I told her. "So just stay." She cried that night. Not the pretty kind, the messy, quiet kind where she buried her face in my neck and shook. I held her until she fell asleep, her tears drying on my skin. I knew we were running out of time. The Forbes summit was 2 weeks away. After that, the contract ended. After that, we were supposed to walk away clean. But every time I tried to imagine letting her go, my chest felt like someone had parked a truck on it. We stopped pretending anywhere except in public. And even then, sometimes we forgot. The photo appeared on a gossip site at 6:07 on a Monday morning. It was grainy, taken from across the street outside the St. Regis after the Forbes pre-summit dinner. Vivian stepping out of the car first, me right behind her, my hand on the small of her back, her head turned just enough that she was clearly laughing at something I'd said. The headline was brutal. Ice Queen melts for junior analyst Hale and Associates CEO caught in late-night tryst. By 7:30, the Journal had it. By 8:00, the board had scheduled an emergency call. I walked into the office and the 17th floor went quiet the way it does when someone's about to get fired. No one would look at me. My manager handed me a printed email without a word and pointed to the elevator. 42nd floor again? This time the glass conference room was full. 8 board members in suits, general counsel, head of PR. Vivian sat at the head of the table in a black blazer, hands folded, face unreadable. She didn't look at me when I came in. The chairman didn't waste time. Effective immediately. Mr. Parker is terminated for violation of company ethics policy. Ms. Hale will take a leave of absence pending investigation into abuse of power and fraternization. Someone slid a termination letter across the table. I didn't touch it. Vivian finally spoke. Voice, flat, professional, lethal. "I accept the board's recommendation regarding Mr. Parker. The relationship was consensual and began after hours. I take full responsibility." She still wouldn't look at me. The chairman nodded. "Security will escort you out, Mr. Parker." I stood up. The room was spinning. I walked the length of the table until I was next to her chair. Everyone watched, waiting for the scene. I leaned down so only she could hear. "Tell them it's not what they think. Tell them we're real." Her fingers curled into fists on the table. Her knuckles went white. "I can't," she whispered. I straightened, looked at her one last time, at the woman who'd fallen asleep on my chest 2 nights ago, who'd laughed so hard she cried over burnt garlic, who'd kissed me like I was the only solid thing in her world. "Got it," I said. I walked out. Security didn't have to touch me. I packed my desk in 12 minutes. Milo met me in the lobby with a coffee I couldn't drink. "You okay?" he asked. No. He didn't ask anything else. I turned off my phone, sublet my apartment in Murray Hill, and moved into a smaller place in Bushwick where nobody knew my name. I got a job doing freelance data cleanup, night shifts, headphones on, lights low. I told myself it was cleaner this way. She kept her empire. I kept my dignity. 3 months of silence. I stopped reading the business section, stopped walking past her building, stopped checking my phone for texts that never came. I told myself the ache would fade. It didn't. Some nights, I still woke up reaching for her side of the bed. I found out later she'd resigned 2 weeks after I left. No press release, no interview. Just gone. The company put out a statement about pursuing new opportunities. The world moved on. I tried to, until the day I walked back into that same Whole Foods on 7th Avenue because I was out of oat milk again, and the rain wouldn't stop. The rain had turned soft, the kind that makes the city smell like wet concrete and possibility. I stood in the entrance of the Whole Foods on 7th, shaking water from my coat when I saw her. Vivian. She was halfway down the wine aisle, wearing a cream cable knit sweater that swallowed her frame, hair loose and longer than I remembered. No makeup, no armor. She held the exact same bottle of Pinot we'd pretended to choose that first night. Her fingers traced the label like she was reading Braille. I stopped breathing. She looked up. Our eyes locked across the fluorescent lights and tired shoppers. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she put the bottle back on the shelf, slow, deliberate, and started walking toward me. No hesitation. No mask. When she reached me, she didn't speak. She just reached for my hand. Same wrist she'd grabbed all those months ago, but this time, her fingers slid between mine like they'd always belonged there. The store noise faded. "I quit," she said quietly. 3 months ago. Sold my shares, walked away, disappeared. A small, shaky laugh. Turns out the world doesn't end when you stop trying to control it. I swallowed. My voice came out rough. "I thought you chose the company." "I chose being afraid." She stepped closer. "I'm done with that." Her other hand came up, touched my cheek, thumb brushing the spot that still remembered her tears. "I miss the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching," she whispered. "I miss burnt garlic and 2 a.m. walks and your stupid oat milk in my fridge. I miss you, Liam, not the version I hired. You!" The aisle around us kept moving. Carts, fluorescent hum, someone arguing about organic avocados, but we were perfectly still. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. "I'm asking for a second first night, no contracts, no audiences, just us." I looked at her. Really looked. The woman who'd once ruled half of Manhattan was standing in sneakers and an old sweater asking me to choose her when she no longer had anything left to offer except herself. I leaned down and kissed her right there between the Malbec and the Cabernet, slow and certain and real. Her lips tasted like rain and relief. When we pulled apart, she smiled, small, soft, the first completely unguarded smile I'd ever seen from her. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I answered. We left the bottle on the shelf. We didn't need it anymore. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights reflected in puddles like scattered stars. She slipped her hand into mine and squeezed once. "I'm not very good at being a person yet," she said. "Good thing I'm patient." We walked out together. No cameras, no scripts, no pretending. Just two people who'd learned the hard way that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is start over with nothing but the truth and someone willing to hold your hand while you figure it out. And for the first time in a very long time, the city didn't feel cold at all.